Okay.
Good evening. My name is Jesse Rosenthal. I am thrilled to welcome all of you to tonight's Zoom session. We're going to be talking about the View from the Touchline presentation and discussion among senior referees, very illustrious presenters tonight to lead the discussion. They're all USA FIFA assistant referees, Kyle Atkins, Corey Parker, and Meghan Mullen. With that, I will please acknowledge to everyone that these are not the official positions or opinions of FIFA, of Pro, of US Soccer, or any state referee committee. The opinions that are being shared are limited just to the people who are speaking, personal opinions only. Thank you very much. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Meghan, Corey, and Kyle.
Thank you, Jesse, and good evening, everybody. Really appreciate everybody taking time out of their night and away from their families and jobs and other things to join us. I'll hit a few housekeeping items, and then we'll jump into some introductions. Just by way of logistics, if there's any comments, questions, technical issues, anything that that may come up in the presentation, or things that you want to add or contribute, please pop it into the chat function. We'll do our best to manage and monitor that, and either try to answer questions real time or to follow up and try to incorporate some of those pieces as best we can into dialogue. We have a lot of content tonight, so we'll do our best to both get through it, answer those questions, and then at the same time try to make sure that we hit on really the most important pieces of kind of ARs and teamwork here with the great content that we have for you all. As Jesse mentioned, we're not speaking on behalf of FIFA, US Soccer, Pro, or anybody else. It's really just our opinions. So really, welcome any comments, questions, thoughts that you all have, and we'll do our best to answer those, and especially with some of the videos that we have, with ourselves included, to give you some of that context for how we experienced it live. Just by way of moving to the next slide and some introductions, I can turn it over to Meghan to let her in. Well, hold on, let me move to this slide first. Yeah. Just because we have some discussion topics, we'll break this out a little bit from talking about teamwork and the role of the assistant referee, and we'll hit on subtopics including communication, assistance, and when to insist. We'll also cover managing the technical areas and some other AR-specific leading practices, and probably a number of other areas as we break down a few clips in the presentation.
Awesome.
All right. Now, Meghan, go for it.
Cool. So just a quick introduction. I know, honestly, looking at the names, I've worked with several of you before, but for those of you who haven't had the opportunity to meet, just a little bit about me. So like many of you, I started off playing soccer at a young age, played through high school. I didn't actually start refereeing until high school, but then stopped in college. I was doing a Division I cross country and track, which actually is pretty good for reffing, but wasn't able to do both at the same time. After college, unfortunately, I had a bunch of injuries, but I finally got back into reffing around 2016, when I got my grade 8 at the time, now the grassroots badge. Got going on that, and really my path to pro, everyone's path is different, but mine was through the youth tournament. So I did the state cup, I did regionals, went to my first nationals in 2018, and then from there is where I was identified to be in part of the pro development group. I actually got my first professional match. It was a USL 1 league match in Richmond in 2019. I remember it well. And then after a few years of doing various pro games, NWSL, USL 1, USL Championship, I had the opportunity to get my first MLS game. It was a trialist game. This picture is actually from that game. It was a Chicago Fire versus Orlando City in July of 2021. The game went well, and I was able to get 2 more trial games in 2021. And then was offered the opportunity to be selected as a probationary AR for 2022 for MLS. So far, I've actually had about 14 MLS matches this season. So it's been a really good learning experience. You know, they had some ups and downs for sure, but it's been a great learning experience. Additionally, in 2022, I had the honor of being nominated as a FIFA AR and joined the panel. It's been a great experience and has really opened up the door for more international opportunities. Most recently, I was invited to do the CONCACAF Women's Under-20 Championship that was held in the Dominican Republic in February. Great learning experience and looking forward to hopefully getting a few more opportunities like those. All right, I will turn it, I believe Kyle is next.
Hello, Kyle Atkins. I'm from Kansas City. I see a couple people in the chat from Kansas City, or as Corey likes to say, I'm from the Ozarks. I, much like Megan, played soccer throughout my youth and through high school, but I began refereeing in 2001. I was 13 years old, and I learned very quickly I was a much better referee than I was a player. I started taking refereeing seriously while in college at Kansas State University, going back to KC on the weekends to referee games. I worked my way through the state cup and regional circuit, and as I improved, I was given opportunities to travel to many different competitive tournaments where I was assessed and seen by the right people. And in 2013, I was assigned to work my first professional match, which happened to be the first ever NWSL match. The following year, I worked my first MLS game, then joined the league fully in 2015. And 2018, I was appointed to the FIFA panel, and I've been privileged enough to have been selected to multiple FIFA tournaments over the past few years, most notably this one coming up in November. Yeah, that's the short version of it.
I'll ignored all of my talking points for him and all of his illustrious accomplishments.
It's too long a list.
It is. But just good evening again, everybody. My name is Corey Parker. For those of you who I don't know, I have been refereeing since I was 13 years old. Started taking it seriously when I got into college, I'll say, and came from Penn State down from Pennsylvania West to the DC, Virginia, Maryland area, and have been here since. I got into the MLS right out of college, and have now, I guess, on my 11th year, something like that. If I can do math, it's a little over 250 MLS games now, so it's been quite an experience. I was added to the FIFA panel back in 2015. I've had some fantastic opportunities. I worked with Megan early this year for the first time. I am lucky enough to work with Kyle on a regular basis as part of our crew, with Ismail Elfath. So just really looking forward to sharing some of the videos of that we have both been a part of in some of these clips, and hopefully next time we do this presentation again, Megan will have a few more with us, and we'll get a chance to pick her brain on some of those scenarios in the future. So really looking forward to walking you through all of these wonderful videos and slides that we have. And I'll move it forward to the next slide, and a little bit of additional logistical items here. As I mentioned before, really want you all to contribute. Feel free to ask questions, stop us, jump in, whatever it is that's on your mind. I'm sure somebody is thinking it, so we'd welcome that content. We'll try to give you a little bit more background into some of the actual discussions and communications between our decisions and how you can apply some of those pieces. We'll try to get you a little bit more of the why something was done, why we acted or operated or communicated in a certain way, and really the practical application of what we're trying to accomplish through this teamwork and the communication conversations that we're having. And again, there's no wrong answers. If there's opinions or thoughts in some of these videos, we really welcome that information. And I'm not even sure some of the stuff we have in here is exactly the correct answer. We have some really late breaking additions into the presentation for some clips this weekend. So we'll go through those in detail as well, and welcome your thoughts there. To move into the overview here, we have again broken this down from the role of the assistant into a few different areas. Overall communication, what it means to assist versus insist, how we're going to manage the technical area and tips and tricks there, and just other leading practices. And I can turn it over to Megan for this slide.
So again, we're emphasizing audience participation. So I kind of want to put this out there. Feel free to put in the chat. What are some important attributes of an AR? Whether it's the physical attributes, whether it's the focus. Go ahead and take some time and put them in the chat, and then we'll discuss it on the next slide. And I'll call people. I know I've worked with several of you. I'll call you out if I have to. I see some people typing, maybe. Perfect. Thank you, John. You were on my list of people to call out if I had to. All right, speed, focus, yes. Communication, yep. Patience. Douglas is talking the specific area of focus. Douglas, do you want to unmute real quick and expand a little bit on what you mean by that?
Sure. There's moments where, you're always with your second to last defender, right? Yep. But there's moments where there's a foul immediately to your left and there is no offside decision to be made. That might be a moment where your area of focus needs to shift to assist the referee with any crucial decision that might be made, especially if it's in the area of control that really is yours to own.
Absolutely. Then I like Aaron's know the laws and restart. We're going to emphasize this a lot. This is teamwork, right? So this is not just about the referee knowing everything. You're not here just to call offside. You are there to bring extra value and making sure we get the decisions right. Absolutely. Confidence. I like it. Yes, Antonio. Absolutely. Okay. I think this is a good start. Why don't we go to the next slide, and I can just call out a few as well. So kind of just did that word cloud of some of the important attributes here. A lot of them we've already covered based off of the audience participation, so really appreciate that. I'm going to call out a few that stand out to me, and then Kyle and Corey, feel free to jump in. So communication, it's in the center. We're going to spend a lot of time on it. So I'm not going to emphasize it too much. I guess something from my perspective is, when I'm going into the game, and especially going into more of the professional level, the key with communication and the mindset that I have is speaking with purpose. What is this information that I'm giving? Is it helping the referee, and is the timing of that information what it needs to be? And we'll get into that, but I just wanted to emphasize that point. Also, the other thing related to communication is, and something I encourage you all to do is, so I still regularly do college whistle assignments, right? So I'm the referee, and it's been a really good way to get their perspective of, okay, what is helpful information? What do I need to be hearing, as well as when do I need to hear it? So I encourage you all, as you're looking at, hey, do I want to be AR referee? Continue to do both, because I think it helps you be better in whatever role you end up being. The other item I want to focus on is sprints. Again, just looking at it as an AR, sprint training is a must. They're already at a disadvantage, right? So you've got players who are facing forward. They're usually already on a straight sprint. You're facing square to the field and have to turn. It just takes it takes practice, really, to get that explosiveness. So that's a good one to point out. And then the other one I want to highlight is awareness. Just because the ball's on the other side of the field doesn't mean you get to switch off. There's always stuff happening, whether it's players off the ball that are getting physical, whether making sure that you're getting the right restarts as a team. Those are all important awareness items to be aware of. Yeah. Kyle or Corey, any ones you want to highlight?
Yeah, and I'll say just a quick tidbit to throw out here. I like anyone to think about what you see or don't see more specifically on this slide that we didn't include, and feel free to pop that in the chat as we go forward. I think there's definitely more on here, but this is just a first gut reaction of some really important concepts. And for me, as I think about kind of what Douglas said and thinking about your priorities from an assistant referee standpoint, yes, offside is usually your first priority, but you have to shift that priority constantly. Every time the ball goes in a different direction, every time the referee moves in a different place, you have to think about how that impacts you as an assistant. And knowing, for example, as the play comes down the touchline and you're moving looking to your left as you move, it becomes harder and harder and harder as that play comes closer to you to be aware of what's going on to your left at the same time as you're focusing forward and looking at an offside decision. So the referee has a key role to play in helping you get that decision right. If there's something that happens, you have to understand how to divide and conquer. If there's a potential challenge, are you looking up or down? And we'll cover more on the communication piece there. But you're constantly shifting and constantly adapting not only to the game, but to what's expected of you and what the referee is expecting of you and what they're going to bring to help you in that scenario. So it's something that's just always evolving and always changing is what kind of drives me and something I love.
Yeah, good stuff, everybody. I saw some solid ones in the chat. One that I like particularly is the focus aspect, and it's something that Meghan kind of touched on with awareness. I'll give you an example. On a game I had earlier this year, foul occurs just outside the penalty area. Referee issues a yellow card and is busy dealing with a mob of players, and the player who suffered the foul is on the ground. While the referee is distracted, a defender stands over the injured attacker, and starts to heckle him. In response, the attacker reaches out and slaps the lower leg of the defender. The defender falls down like a sack of potatoes and acts like he'd just been shot. This is on the opposite side of the field for me, but it certainly wasn't a time for me to drop my guard because things weren't close to me. By keeping focused, I was able to see the entire incident and communicate calmly and clearly to the referee exactly what happened so that we could handle the situation appropriately on the field, which is important for us with VAR, so we don't have to rely on the VAR component. So biggest takeaway with focus is just make sure you stay focused, especially when the ball's not in play or players are on the ground. And we'll, as we continue, another one that I liked was communication, which is a very big aspect. And if you want to go to the next slide, Corey. Like I said, one of the words brought up was communication, and it's something that we can all agree on is one of the most important aspects of refereeing, and honestly something that can help us immensely in our games, but if not done properly can really hold us back. We've broken it down to a couple different aspects of communication, but we'll start with some basics and work our way into some examples and videos for more discussion. So first and foremost, let's set the foundation. Why is communication so important? Hopefully we'll be able to answer these questions, so keep them in mind as we go through this presentation. But communication is vital to the success of our team, and almost every situation and decision that we make can benefit from good communication. So what is it? It's the verbal and nonverbal cues that the referee, assistant referee, and others, even fourth official, players and coaches display. Now, effective communication will alleviate pressure, disruption, and frustration, hopefully, from the match, players, technical area, and spectators. And we can use communication as a tool, and we can help it better understand how it can help you. So now let's try and answer that first question on the screen. When does communication start? Go to the next slide. Pre-game. The expectation is that you all will have some form of pregame for each one of your matches, regardless the level of competition. The pregame will generally outline the referee's expectations for the crew and is meant to be a discussion with input from the entire team. It's not just the referee standing and talking to everybody. and there's no feedback. We want a dialogue. Remember that each referee is different, and you'll need to be flexible and able to adapt to specific requests of the referee. Ideally, you'll iron out specifically what will be communicated in various scenarios within the game, and specifically when those things will be communicated. Some key topics that should be covered in pregame should include, but definitely aren't limited to, fouls in and around the penalty area, bench management, area of responsibility on set pieces, offside, misconduct, advantage, transition, etc. So specifically, just to give an example, let's talk about the topic of transitions and how it may be discussed during the pregame, and what we might be talking about when we discuss that. So transitions are transitional play, which moving from defense to attack. It'll require you to adjust your responsibilities for decision making, like Corey talked about earlier. So let's see, like say we talk about our counterattackers, or is this we come into a situation where this play, is there a counterattack? Questions that you might ask yourself: is the referee caught out? How many players are in the attack? Could this lead to a spa dogzo decision? Other questions you might be talking about, or things you might be talking about in transition: styles and patterns in play. Some teams sit in a low defensive block and only get out into the attack on the counter, which means that the referee could lean on the ARs to watch their back when they must get quickly upfield, or lean on their ARs to take lead on decision making if they're caught out. Other teams build through the midfield and play through balls to darting forwards, which could mean lots of offside decisions for you. Some teams deploy wingers that stretch the field into the corners, so where they can cross the ball into the box, which means you might have a lot of decisions where a defender is challenging for that ball, and you could have handling situations. It may be a tactic of the team to high press throughout the midfield in the attacking third, which could lead to lots of fouls and potential persistent offenses. Understanding what you might be presented with will mean that you're ready for it when it happens. So special requests that the referee might have when it comes to transitions, they might need the trail AR to cover play to their left or behind their back, especially if they're leaving the penalty area. It's anytime players are together, that's a hot point that you need your focus on. What's the proximity to the referee versus the assistant referee? As we talked about before, if the referee's caught in transition, then the lead AR will need to be ready to make big decisions. Make it a habit to pick your head up, find the referee before relaying information on the decision. They may be closer to the play than you might think. Now, some method of communication, some things you might hear from the referee, or you might say to the ref, these are all things you want to iron out, right? Things you might hear the ref say is, I'm here. Certainly from you, help. Or from the referee might say help. Silent signals like yellow card and red card in your back pocket. For us with offside, help could mean asking who played the ball, or if there was a deflection by a defender out of our view. And then what's our movement look like, especially around the penalty area. If there's a foul in around the penalty area, we like to communicate that, specifically maybe moving up the field, or obviously going to the corner flag if it is a penalty. Or if we have a penalty kick, we're judging goalkeeper encroachment, and do we put our flag up or not? By covering all those what if scenarios in our pregame, we give ourselves the best chance of being able to communicate effectively when the situation does come up.
Yeah, Kyle, I just want to chime in. One of the thoughts that I had is, I'm not crazy. I know that everyone may not have the luxury of having a microphone to talk to one of their colleagues, and they may not be used to working with some of their colleagues, and they're going into a tournament where you don't have time for a pregame. So find things that you can think of when you're the referee that you might ask for your assistant, or if you're an assistant, what key questions do I need to ask my referee in the scenario? And what are the most pressing items that I need to get from them? What are the things that I need the most help with, or where I have the biggest challenge? Those are really important pieces, and to think about specifically, without the luxury of mics, what are we doing from a verbal and nonverbal communication standpoint? How do I do that effectively? And how, for when a situation comes where you're working with somebody for the first time ever, how do you do that effectively and efficiently without having, the luxury again of working with that person before? So think through those things and prepare yourself coming into a match or a tournament where you may have to work with multiple referees in a short period of time, or differing styles. So that's something that can help us get on the same page with a shorter transition period of time. And I'll move into a piece around assisting versus insisting. And I'll give some examples here on this next slide, and then we'll move into some videos to be able to explain this tricky piece here a little bit better. But what we typically think about when we think about assist and our role, we are there to help a referee. We are there to help a game and make sure that we have the right outcome. But there may be instances where we have to do what we call insisting. We have to insist that something be misconduct be dealt with a certain way, or a decision be handled in a certain manner that gets us to the right outcome, probably because it's required by law, but in other scenarios because it's necessary for the success of the match and the success of the referee crew. So really important things to think about here, and how, again, going back to the comment around communication and priorities, making sure we get something right, being able to provide that input when it matters most is really critical. So what you have on the screen here, what I thought of first in this area was fouls and misconduct being a really important area. When we think about the assistant referee's responsibilities, what do we expect from a referee and what do we expect from an assistant referee? Obviously, the assistant referee's area of control is closer in proximity to them, but as Kyle mentioned in his overview of the communication piece and when to have to shift those priorities, if the referee is further from that area, you have to expand your area of control, which means you may be the first line of defense in a decision. You may have to offer input to the referee from what you saw because they were too far away, they had a bad angle. Really, really important thing to think about when you're making a decision is, do I have to elevate myself to make a decision or to provide input that is critical for the success of the match? And then also, what do I need to do from a flag standpoint? I think it's really important that we have to remember as assistant referees, we're there to assist. And most often, if a referee is in the middle of the field, they have the luxury of moving to a different angle or different situation. And if their proximity is such that they're calling a foul, you probably don't need a support flag in all cases. It's one of those things that sometimes can look a little tricky because it's nearby you, but again, we're there to assist. So if the referee is calling a foul and they can see the situation, I want to remind everybody to think about, take a second, look at the referee, think where they are, what are they seeing, what do they need from me, where is the foul? Just a couple of quick questions to give yourself a chance to think, and then decide, do they need my input? I think most often the answer is probably no, but depending on how close it is to you, that can start to shift because my credibility is on the line if I don't call a foul that's right in front of me. So as the play moves closer to you, and as you have more responsibility, it's expected that you will come up with a flag in a situation of a foul or potential misconduct that needs to be issued, and input being provided to the referee in that scenario. So just think about how that shifts a little bit, and let's try to take a second to, if we can, discuss in the pregame, but if not, think about how we might inform the referee or assist the referee in those cases when it's necessary to provide assistance versus insistence, and they may not need the flag if we're just there to assist in that case. And a couple of different pieces on kind of what Kyle mentioned too. And you think about the referee having the opportunity to move in a different direction on the field and create that angle. There's input on handballs, which we'll show a video on, crosses that you might have a different angle, it might be closer to you, and then obviously it shifts your priorities in a different direction, and you may need to provide more input than the referee in those scenarios, something coming from in front of you or a corner kick. Just things again to think about. And then priority communication, we'll talk about this here in a video as well, but when should you as assistant referee talk without mics or with mics, it doesn't matter. When is that expected of you, and what type of information can you give? Typically, again, that will change based on the scenario and where the referee is. But if it's necessary to get it right, so if we talk about, for example, I'll say the easiest one, a dog-so situation, denying an obvious goal scoring by foul or handball, and you have information and the laws require you to give a red card, or if a referee is issuing a different color card than is expected, that's when you might have to, again, insist. So let's think about those as we show some of the clips and what everybody should be thinking. Typical question to ask yourself, either A, now, or B, during your games, or as you prepare, is always be on top of your mind as it's free. What does the game need? What does my referee need from me? And what does the laws of the game require in that scenario? Those are absolutely always something that should be on your mind. I'll move into a clip here. Actually, something that happened from a match this weekend. I'll say as I play this, I apologize if it is choppy. We'll do our best. I'm only going to try to play it once or twice, just for that purpose as I talk. But I'm going to try to give a couple of thoughts here as it develops on the screen, and you can all let me know if there's any problems. You get a, there you go, replay. I'll go back to it one more time and let you all think as I talk. Right here we go. You can see there's a potential foul right in the middle of the field. Referee is transitioning, coming straight on. Kyle happens to be the trail assistant referee in this match, and I'm the AR1 looking at the potential offside decision and potential dog situation. And I think it's relevant when you say, when we talk about priorities here, we have to remember the first thing that probably happens is you have a potential offside decision. Not an extremely difficult one. He's clearly onside, but something you have to think about, and you have to immediately switch from offside decision to potential foul. And you can see as the play develops here, I'm trying to pause it right where the foul is. The ball is being kicked right now. He's onside, but it's a fairly easy decision because you can see the player right in front of him. And then there's immediately a player grabbing. So as the foul develops, I'm going to play one more second here. You can see that the foul occurs right on top of the area, or just outside of the area. And it's really, really, really important here. As an assistant referee, you don't have offside, you immediately have to switch your transition and focus to potential foul. And then from there, potential foul and what type of misconduct is necessary. And you have to also be able, we're lucky because we have communication devices, but if you don't, you need to immediately turn your attention to where's the referee, what are they doing, what kind of card are they pulling out, and make sure that, again, that they have the right information to make their decision. Or they may be looking at you like, I don't know, is it inside, is it outside, is it dog, so is it simple foul, all things that you need to be processing in real time to think about it. But what I think is, the recommendation I would make here, don't wait to get involved. If the referee needs something or is looking at you, have an opinion ready and offer it. In this scenario, I think the assistant referee is expected to be speaking first, or Kyle or the fourth official may have an angle that's slightly different that provides them some context. But in this scenario, it's pretty obvious that there's no control of the ball. So the expected outcome should be yellow card for Spa, because the potential for, again, not having the ball, but also potential for, if the goalkeeper is coming out, they may have the chance to get the ball at the same time. So there's a couple of questions that raise some doubt here. And that should be immediately on the tip of your tongue to be able to provide the referee. If, for example, he's running in, you see a red card in his hand, or you see him reaching for his back pocket, that's absolutely a time that we should be getting involved. And think about, to yourself, what should you be offering to the referee in the scenario in terms of words or useful information? That's what I would say. But typically for us, it would be something like yellow, 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 because we're lucky we have communication devices. But for you, it might be that silent signal for yellow card. So again, if they're looking at you, you might have to call them over and talk. So there's lots of pieces here, but remember, be ready to offer that information to the referee in that scenario, because you have all the pieces of the puzzle as assistant referee in this scenario. And they may not need you, but if they do, you have it, and it's right in front of you, which is nice here. They're not always that easy, but that's the kind of the checklist of items that you should be thinking through as an assistant referee. I'll move it forward to the next slide here for Kyle.
We actually got a good question. Leo just asked, does it negatively affect the credibility of the center referee if they immediately look over to the AR for the card decision?
So again, three assistant referees on the call here. I'm not really concerned too much about the credibility of the referee, but I don't think so. I think it's expected, right? We usually talk at the top level with, take your time, get the information if you need it. I'll say most referees, and for example, that scenario, don't need our help, but it doesn't hurt to double check, to look, to verify. Sometimes there's more complex natures to it. Like, is it offside? Does he go up with the offside flag instead of the foul? Is it inside? Is it outside? Things that may be more complex than that one video. But I think it's expected that they look, they use their team, and or they get help if need be. Good point.
Yeah, good. Before you play it, Corey, I just want to say real quick, there's something you said before that I really liked, that you need to always be ready to get involved. And for me, that's always be ready to give your opinion, and more specifically, always be ready to give your opinion using considerations. That way you lend credibility to what you're saying to the referee, and it helps sell a bit what you're trying to convey to the referee. For instance, in this clip, as opposed to Corey's clip, it was, sorry about the dogs, it's about insisting instead of assisting. So before we watch the clip, for decisions around the penalty area, we need to ask ourselves some similar questions as if the play was in the other parts of the field, like who has the best angle, where is the referee, and what do I need to do, or how do I convince the referee of this decision? How do we do that with comms? What if we don't have them? So go ahead and play this clip now, Corey.
Yep.
It's pretty short.
And it is in slow motion, so yeah, it's not lagging.
So you can take note of, let's go back and answer these questions, right? So who has the best angle here? It is likely to be AR1, or the assistant referee. Is that, if you go back to the beginning of the clip, there are two players on the goal line. So we've got a boundary line decision. You expect the assistant referee to be there to make the boundary line decision. I mean, the objective is to see between the players without obstructions. And in this instance, the AR can clearly see the play. Whereas if you go forward in the clip, the referee
There's a boundary
has an
line
obstructed view. He's directly behind it, and even has another white player between him and the incident. So he likely can't see it. Next question we need to answer, where is the referee? Which in this case is more or less the same distance as the assistant. So this kind of makes it a little trickier with relation to should we put the flag up or not? Because this is an area of the field that generally you don't see an assistant referee put their flag up. Luckily, on this game, we have communication devices. So like I said, always be ready to give an opinion using considerations. And in this case, the referee, knowing he's not in the greatest position, he could sense something might have happened and said immediately that they couldn't see it. The AR then immediately gets on the comms and says, penalty, handball, arm in an unnatural position. That makes it really easy for the referee, points to the spot, awards a penalty kick. But this,
I mean, Kyle,
yeah, go ahead.
It really important too. Again, we're saying this because we have the luxury of communication devices, but without those, I mean, it's the same conversation. They just may have to come over to you. Either because you pop the flag and they have no idea in this scenario, or because it's just easier to have that conversation and nail a game critical decision with the shortest pieces of information.
Yeah, and that actually leads into the next one. We're getting a little bit ahead, but But yeah, so like without comms, like I said, if you're 100% sure, then you have your flag, you put your flag up, because this is a game critical decision. I mean, take a look at the score, take a look at the time. This is a pretty critical moment in the match. And give you some more context, the fourth official just put up 7 minutes of stoppage time. So this definitely matters. So we want to make sure we get it right. And if you see this and you're 100% sure, then, and you don't have the communication devices, then yeah, you got to put your flag up. This is you saving the day in a sense.
And I would just emphasize again, we're talking about the pregame. Go over this in your pregame, especially when you don't have it. It's still important when you have communication devices, but without them, what's that expectation, for raising the flag, for those handballs that there's no way that the referee is going to see. That would definitely be something to try to incorporate in that pregame.
Absolutely. Yeah, and on that, to go
All
off of that, you got to expect that you're going to have handling decisions each time you have a contested cross in your area of control. So you keep that in mind and you expect it to happen every time. So that way, when it does happen, you're ready for it. And you're ready to call it if it's needed. Because if the referee has a good view, has a good angle, good proximity, then you would assist if they need the help versus insist in making the call yourself.
All right, so just a few pieces here. I'll try to move quicker through some of these slides. I know we're having some great conversation and I have a video here to back this up, but offside is becoming increasingly more difficult. We see more interfering with an opponent decisions than ever before. The players are becoming quicker, are smarter, know how to read the game better than ever. So it's creating some complex offside decisions, and we need to be able to understand what's expected of the game, what's expected in that scenario. What does the referee need from us, and what do we need from the referee to make sure we get the decision right? It's no longer just an offside decision from the assistant referee. It's definitely going to require teamwork. And frankly, we see that almost every game now. There's some level of an offside decision that requires input from multiple people, with or without communication devices. So be ready, as we've mentioned now a couple of times throughout the presentation, have an opinion, be ready to offer that opinion, be ready to provide, if the referee might have to come over and talk to you, considerations for what you need to get it right. Who touched it? Did a player make an action from an offside standpoint? Did that action have an impact? And how do we get the right decision in a scenario like offside? I will move forward just to, again, keep this moving. This is a little bit of a longer clip, so I might speed it up a little bit. But a complex offside decision.
Very.
So you'll see a couple of replays here. I'll just let it play because it's a long one. I'll talk what happens. But as you can see, there's two players challenging for a ball. Two players near to the goal line are in offside position, and there's a player in the middle of the field that both end up almost simultaneously challenging for a ball. And then there's obviously some confusion here because, just to be transparent, nobody knows who scored the goal. There is easy for me as the assistant referee on the far side of the field to see the players in an offside position. I'll scroll back to it.
But there's no way that you're going to be able to see who scores that goal.
Right. So between looking through the defenders and the attackers and the challenging player, honestly, right now you can't even tell who's kicking the ball in. So it becomes something where you obviously need that impact piece. You need to understand, did the player in an offside position make an action that impacted the goalkeeper? Who scored the goal? Was it the guy onside or the guy that was offside? Because if it's a matter of interfering with play, it's a lot easier than interfering with the opponent. So there's some pieces here that you absolutely require input from the entire team. And just to avoid playing 2 more minutes of the video where you see me talking to the referee, the important piece of information is when I talked to the referee, I said, who scored the goal? And I forget the numbers now, but I said, I have these 2 players in an offside position, but I don't know who scored the goal. We had to deal with some of the players, some of the reaction from the fans, but ultimately, and why we talk about communication and expectations for everyone on the field, the fourth official is the one who told us who scored the goal. So this is when I say everybody must have awareness of what's going on in the situation and what piece of the puzzle is needed. I'm asking the referee who scored the goal. He's trying to calm the players down, the fans down, and we're dealing with the scenario, and then somebody can provide that input. And once we knew who provided that input, we were able to get the right piece of information to disallow the goal, because it was ultimately this player here in an offside who scored the goal. Just remember, you must take your time. You must talk to the referee. You must be able to provide input as to what you know, but then ask for what you don't know, and be ready to provide it if you're a member of the team. AR1 could have provided this information. It wouldn't have mattered, but AR2 and the referee didn't know. So that's how we got it right. Absolutely a critical decision.
So I want to point out here, Corey, the face-to-face close discussion with the referee really helps sell this critical decision in this match. You have headsets, right? And you could have done this, and obviously there's a little bit of a language barrier here too. So considering those things, it's good that you get next to each other and are talking face to face, because it helps lend credibility to your decision. And the players don't know that you're getting the information from AR1 or the fourth official. They just see you and the referee discussing the play as you saw it and coming to what you find is the correct decision. And I think even if you have mics, doing this kind of thing on game critical decisions is never going to hurt you.
All right, let's go ahead and play this. So this is another interfering with an opponent clip. So let's play this through, and then we'll talk through it. Good work rate by the AR to get there. Is there a replay? No.
Yep.
Okay.
Here it comes.
Perfect. So, couple things when you're talking about interfering with an opponent, right? There are a couple steps. First thing you got to figure out is step one, are they in offside position? Okay, so the answer is yes. You freeze it at the kick point. I know we're a little ahead, but yes, is she in an offside position? Yes. You got to work on your AVAR skills, Corey. Just putting that out there.
Just roll with it.
rolling with it. So step one, determine offside position, right? Step two, is there interference? Now, a lot of times the classic interference is line of sight, right? That's a classic one we go to. But as Corey mentioned, the offside decisions for interference are getting much more complex. It's not really just line of sight. For this one, which if we can scroll a bit more where you see the action with the foot, what you want to really think of, and we've said this phrase before, is there some sort of action that has an impact, right? That's what we're talking about. What is there an impact that potentially interferes with the opponent? That's the phrase you want to think about, is impact. So and keep scrolling, because I like the view from behind the goal, if it gives that replay. So I think that gives the clearest one. Here it is. Perfect. So when you watch this clip, she's in offside position. What is the action she's doing? She's lifting the foot, right? That action actually has an impact because it freezes the keeper. The keeper has to make that has to wait to see, okay, is she going to actually play this ball? Is it going to hit off of her? Whatnot? That action has impact. Bottom line, it is an offside offense. It is interfering with an opponent. So that's step two. You've said yes, there is interference. So step three, all right, how do you communicate that, right? So one, if you've got first thing is you're not running up the line, right? It doesn't matter if you have mics or whatnot, you're just not running up the line. You're standing at attention. If you have mics, you say no goal, give your considerations like we've been talking about. I've got number 10 in offside position. I have her interfering. She raises her action of moving their foot, interferes with the keeper. I have interference. Okay. If you don't have mics, again, you're still staying at attention. Have the referee come over and talk through it. Help sell that call. And again, then once you agree that an offside offense has occurred, you start with the indirect free kick coming out. All right. So I just key points is kind of break it down, establish as offside position, to establish that there's interference, make sure to communicate what were your considerations. It's not always just about line of sight. It's about action that has an impact.
And I'll say we're assuming, again, that anything we might say, because again, we're lucky to have the opportunity to use technology, but if you do not have that technology in any given match, it's expectation that these complex decisions would likely be something that requires communication between referee and assistant referee. And how do you do that effectively and efficiently? And those are the points you should be emphasizing. Those are the considerations in any given decision that you should be communicating with or without mics. I think that's the important piece here. We're just trying to talk through mostly the considerations. And the next piece here we have is a piece around communication and what is expected of an assistant referee, maybe when there's not an offside decision, but what do we do and what is expected of us as a play develops. I'll show the video here. It's an excellent movement clip for an assistant referee. You'll see the assistant referee at the bottom of the screen. Play is developing, potential offside situation, wait and see. You see an assistant referee moving quickly up the touchline. And you're probably asking yourself, what's the point of this clip other than anticipation and movement from the assistant referee? Is think about what could happen in this scenario. As I mentioned a second ago, you might have an offside decision. You might have a potential foul, similar to what we showed with the Doxo clip earlier, where somebody's coming and pulling the attacker in the middle of the field down, or pulling their shirt to pull them back, to slow them down. So there's a lot of considerations here that you need to be aware of and be thinking about how you shift your priorities from, okay, I need to move, I need to sprint, I need to get the field, I need to call offside or not offside, I need to help with a Doxo or spa situation, and really be aware that if you're not in line with that second to last defender, as one of those situations occurs that could cause you to be out of position, that could impact your ability to make an appropriate decision and assist the referee team in getting that right. So think about what could happen in terms of offside, fouls, in and out of play, goal line decisions, and work to be in that position to be able to help a referee, because the referee is transitioning just as far back up the field and has to catch up as well. So this is where Kyle and Meghan both alluded to in the previous part of their previous words they were sharing, but we need to be able to turn this on as a referee and understand when it's us that has to provide that input and that information to get an effective decision right. Keep moving here. And I'll turn it to Kyle to hit on managing the technical areas. I think.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So listen, when it comes to managing technical areas, we as ARs can play a really big role. Sure, on games like we referee these higher level games, we usually have a fourth official and they can shoulder a lot of that workload, but there's still things that we can do as assistant referees to help manage the technical area. And certainly on games that we don't have a fourth official, we're going to have to shoulder the load, the responsibility of managing the technical area. So set your expectations from the referee of what they want from you in your pregame discussion, like we've talked about before. Like things like, what are you going to tell your referee about an incident with the coach, make it short and to the point. If you have a fourth official, maybe what do you as an AR need from the fourth? Maybe running interference on a coach that could potentially be trying to distract you from your duties as an AR. And how can everyone have a role in the success of the team? Like, are there coaches or subs on your touchline? Could the fourth official maybe help with the ball in and out of play or boundary line decisions if AR1 needs to focus on the second to last opponent? I know, Corey, you just had this happen in our game over the weekend. And we need to think about, when do I need or require a warning or caution or a red card for a coach? One thing I will say is, don't make a small problem into a big problem. And you can do that by being proactive. And also, no mistakes in law. So brush up on your laws of the game. Inevitably we'll have an interaction with a coach, and using some of these qualities you see on the screen right now, and your approach to your interactions with them could really help you be successful. So let's just go down the list with respect. It's as easy as, starting off the game with a handshake to the teams, to the coaches, and just saying all the best. It can really go a long way in building a respectful relationship in the game. Honesty, coaches can tell when you're giving them the runaround. So if a coach wants an explanation on a decision, be ready to give one, but don't make it up. And don't get lost in the details. But a general, honest assessment of what you've seen will often satisfy a coach's request. Listen. Most of the time, coaches just want to be heard. So let them know you hear and understand them, obviously at an appropriate time. But remember, your responsibilities and priorities are on the field. So find the right time to build that relationship and make the connection. Trust me, it'll help. Also, letting the coach know that you'll discuss their concerns with the crew at halftime, or a natural stoppage in play, such as during an injury, can also be helpful. But make sure you follow through, though, and follow up with the coach before the restart of play. Another big one, empathy. Emotions are a part of the game. So understanding the differences between emotions, reactions, competitive drive, etc. Most often, they're not personal, so don't let it shake your confidence. Responding is fine, but remain confident and firm when addressing the outburst. And my recommendation here, get used to letting the coach have the last word. It's getting into an argument with a coach is always going to be a losing battle for us. So just say what needs to be said in a respectful manner and move on. Yeah,
Kyle, just to interrupt for 2 seconds. I just want to be mindful of time. I know we're just a bit over 8. We just have a couple more slides. We'll move through them quickly, and we're happy to stay along for anyone in terms of a few questions and answer session pieces. So, but we understand if folks have to drop. Appreciate everyone's time, but we'll try to get through this last couple of slides very quickly.
Yeah. So just to be quick, confidence, don't ignore disrespectful or irresponsible behavior. Make sure you hold the coaches accountable, because ignoring that type of behavior will only encourage it to continue. So handle with a strong word, and if needed, get the referee involved. Which brings me to my final quality, the teamwork. Referees, I know we have all ARs on here, but I'm sure a lot of you still referee. Support your assistant referees when they ask for help with a coach. You're a team, and if someone on your crew has an issue with something the coach is doing, support your teammates and address it as soon as possible. Yeah, Corey, I think you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, I'm gonna not play the next video. It's just a clip of Kyle Atkins being a fantastic proactive assistant referee, and I might have to show it anyway just to clip through, but I'll show it and take a second. Some wonderful prevention right in front of the bench, which doesn't sound like maybe it's managing the technical areas, but how many of our youth matches have something that occurs right there, right in front of the bench, and all of a sudden things can escalate? Maybe it's just a little bit, maybe it's a significant issue, but absolutely that prevention, that awareness is considered part of managing the technical area. If you have a foul that occurs trying to get back to it, right at the edge of the technical area here. Anything can happen. So being proactive, being aware, and helping to manage the situation helps everybody on the crew. And flipping through just to some quick tips and tricks, and this is really our last piece of information on the slide. There's a few resources which we'll have in the materials here, and we'll flip through those in a second. But just some tips and tricks that we kind of all threw together and things that help us be successful. I think the thing for me that I like the most about this slide is find what works for you and do it. There's no right or wrong as assistant referee, but there's little things that we all do to make ourselves successful. And for example, one of the things that I do is, I go out and when we're checking the nets, I make as hard as I can a sprint to check the net. And then it's not prescribed, it's not required. I go around the corner flag because that's what works for me and my mentality. And I sprint again, put a hard sprint in right after coming around the corner flag, and also try to do some sort of activation, whether it's jumps, whether it's a quick subtle sidestep movement, to get myself into that game mentality, to ready myself for a possible early offside decision. So just things that I do, things that we all probably have different preferences on, but these were a list of a couple of things that we threw together that wanted to share with you.
And the one I'll highlight, well, too quickly, is talking about necessary movements, and specifically for the sprinting. So as an AR, when you're doing sprint training, right, you really want to incorporate that movement from going from a square position to turning and sprinting, okay? Because that's what you're doing in the game, right? And you want to make sure your body can handle that, and you get quicker and more explosive. So really, when I'm doing, we call it match prep the day before a game, I do a few sprints, and I never just do the sprint straight on. I always do side, changing direction, because that's what you're doing in the game, finding out what works for you. The last thing I'll put is wearing the cleats. All right. So I know we have people at different levels. So we have some folks that are still doing rec, grassroots, whatever. But as you move up and you want to, one, look more professional, but two, actually perform better as an AR, you've got to wear cleats. That's what the players are wearing. That's what you need to be effective to get that side to side movement and get that max sprint speed. Wear the cleats. That's what I'll emphasize for now.
And hold a flag while doing it. I think if it may seem kind of wonky to be out on a field training by yourself and carrying around a flag, but practicing that movement, that transition, how you hold a flag, what that feels like, what that looks like while you're doing those trainings is critical. That piece will help tremendously because it gets you more comfortable with those types of movements, more used to doing that as you transition, and you'll just get more comfortable faster and more prepared for, again, that decision without thinking about the movement, without thinking about what am I doing with the flag. That'll become second nature. And just to hit on these last couple of slides, we have some takeaways here. Nothing that I think we need to emphasize. Teamwork is really the point of the presentation. Know your role, be able to put these pieces of the puzzle into practice, and that'll help not only you be successful, but the entire crew, which is the most important piece of what we can provide today. The resources that we do have in here that I will just show, but point you in that direction, is FIFA actually has published in the past some considerations, and those considerations relate specifically to assistant referees and assistant referee decisions. In some cases, there's more. I'll just say Google FIFA considerations, and there'll be a link that'll populate with a couple of different pages of questions and thoughts and considerations for making decisions at really all levels. Those are pieces of the puzzle here that relate to ARs, but there's more. So go ahead and seek that out. That's something that's just interesting to read through. And then some links that we put in here. I'll leave it. You can all take a screenshot if you want, or we can have this for the future. But Pro has a number of pieces of information out there in terms of not only assistant referee stuff, but referee content. It's a great resource. Has a YouTube channel where they've put some information on there. which you can seek out. And then IFAB has all kinds of stuff around new clarifications on offside, delivered play versus deflection, laws of the game pieces, and just some other, again, good content that's out there. All right, and I will stop sharing my screen. And again, that's the end of our prepared materials. Really appreciate everyone's time and thoughts and comments and participation in the chat. We're happy to answer questions, or if there's things that you want to talk about. I mean, we're here for you all. So, but also totally understand if you have to drop. No problem there.
It looks like we got one question from Maria about advice on top things to be aware of for grassroots AR. And then second question, top advice for an assigner mentor to someone who wants to advance. The second question, Maria, is that, can you expand on that a little bit? I'm not understanding it.
Hi, yes. So I'm an assigner, my local area, and I have a young referee, high school age, who's been doing great, both as a referee and AR, but thinks they want to advance, to upgrade and stuff. What advice would you give them? And so you've all followed that pathway. Mm-hmm. But what it would be this thing like, oh, you definitely should start here, or this is the best way to advance?
Good question. I mean, first, he sounds, if he's still in high school, so get as much experience as you can. Again, everyone's journey is different, but my journey was through the youth tournaments, and I think that's a great, especially if he's still in high school, that is a great place to start. Start doing your state cups, start doing, from state cup, then you go to regional. So have him reach out to the state referee committee, wherever he is. And they can definitely get him hooked up into, the state cup tournaments or that kind of thing. I think that's a great place to start. That would be my recommendation.
Games experience, get out there and see as much soccer as you can. That's, I think, similar to what Meghan said, that's what helped us all, is you're getting to work with more referees, you're getting more game experience, and there's always something you could take out of it. Those things are instrumental in how you develop. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to become an expert in something. But just to be able to see more people, more referees, pick their brains, talk to folks. There's so many benefits to doing more games.
Yeah, being a sponge and being coachable. It sounds like they want feedback. So finding any game you work, trying to get some feedback from the crew, or if there are other referees out on a tournament watching the game, just always asking questions, always seeking out others to try and improve yourself can only help you.
And thanks, Jesse, for popping some comments in there. Definitely important. Any other questions, thoughts, action points? Leo popped a question in the chat. How do you know who to trust on advice? That's a good one. I think find find a resource or resources that you can rely on. There's no right answer here. But I think we would all say, we've had various mentors along our journeys, friends, colleagues, referees, people in sport. It's all over the place that can offer you opinions or advice, or someone you can just talk to. Even at our levels, we're reaching out to each other and asking colleagues, or, I text Kyle all the time, hey, what did you think? What would you do? How can we do better? We disagree on decisions and clips and styles and things all the time. But having somebody to talk to, having somebody that you can trust is important. How you find them is probably just experience. It'll probably be through your journey and who you can relate to best, or who you see as somebody who has some of those skill sets that you want to try to adapt to or to take advantage of, and that's my recommendation.
I have a question. This is Brian. Hi. I'm a grassroots referee in the DC metro area. And there was a game that I was an AR on. This was in the spring. It was a ECNL game, a girls U17, where the center ref was, I guess, quote unquote, letting the boys, or in this case, the girls play. And it was getting to the point where it was getting kind of chippy and physical, and almost to the point where it was a bit unsafe. And I was wondering, in a situation like that, as an AR, would you talk to like the center ref, call him over, and maybe talk to him at half, or would you like start maybe yourself calling a tighter game than almost the center ref is? And it was a really tough position, and I did want to start calling it tighter, but it would have been, I think, weird for me, for an AR, right, to call a tighter game than the center ref, or perhaps even the AR on the other side. And yeah, it's just been kind of bugging me, and I've been thinking about it for a while. So yeah, I just like your opinion, see what you guys have to say.
Kyle, I saw you came off mute. Go for it.
Yeah. At the end of the day, number one priority for all of our games is the safety of the players. And so we got to keep that first and foremost in our minds. Granted, we do want to try and be on the same page as our referees, but we've all been on those games where we can see the referee is steering the ship in the wrong direction. And there is only so much that we can do. So like you had mentioned, Brian, calling the referee over and giving your honest opinion about how you feel things are going might help in that situation. And certainly at halftime, saying, hey, this is going down the wrong path, and we got to keep the player safety in mind. And I understand your frustration and awkwardness at feeling like if you're going to be calling the game from the sideline, and I'm sure a lot of people would feel the same way. But do the best you can to communicate with the referee, either during the match or at halftime, and hopefully that helps right the ship.
Thank you.
And just to answer the question in the chat, kind of how to address preparation, specifically for the speed of play at the next match. I mean, I think it's some of the things that Meghan mentioned. Practice, technical and practical training, like an assistant referee would do. So going out and figuring out how to do training that is specific to an assistant referee. Specifically what we do, you might have certain workouts that are accelerations, so short bursts of speed, getting accustomed to that transition from stop to start, stop to sprint, from jog to sprint, and working through some of those types of movements, and training in cleats and training with a flag that gets you accustomed to making those decisions, and that with that kind of mentality at the same time are really critical. But also kind of working more games as you think about how to get opportunities to move up to the next level, working games up and to that level, and trying to get more experience where you're trying to go, is probably two of the things that I think of what will help you most. There's probably more, but just a couple of quick thoughts in my head.
The thought I would add is watch those games. So as I got my first MLS assignment and knew the teams that I would be reffing, oh, you best believe I was watching as many of their games as I could. I was watching, okay, did they already play earlier in the season? What can I expect? Who are are they playing a high line? Are they playing a low line? How are they lining up for corner kicks, free kicks? Are there people that they're lining up to try and do a pick for a possible interference? So those are all things that I kept in mind as I started moving up, for sure.
Yeah, and the question in the chat next around being on the touchline, I think we've all heard something like this in the past. It's something that I think is probably not discussed enough. Being behind the touchline, I think, will help you for a variety of reasons. It gives you perspective on the field. It helps you with finding a point of reference when you're making a decision. Be square to the field, and depending on where the ball is, you may need to be closer to the touchline for a decision in and out of play, or as play is approaching you, to create a better angle, you might have to move. But certainly there's no harm if you do have to run on the line. No one's going to tell you that that's going to cause a problem if you're doing it for a specific reason. Typically run behind it just because it gives us a better point of reference. But I think it helps you more often to be behind the line than it does to be on the line. So that's probably why that comes up, but I don't think it's absolutely required or there's a problem if you do have to step on the line. In fact, in the MLS level, even a lot of fields have situations where you don't have grass all the way off the field. So we have to run on the line, or you have to run on the field in some cases, or just to benefit you for not running an AstroTurf essentially. So there's no problem with it. Just something to think about. Why you might be doing it is to help yourself. Running off the field generally gives you that perception or assistance with making a decision to create a better angle. All right, it seems like we might have had a good pause in the questions that have come in. Looking at Jesse now to tell me if he thinks we're good on this front, or if there's anything else he wants me to cover.
Hi, Corey. Hi, Kyle. Hi, Megan. Hi, everyone. I want to make sure that before we do anything else, that we say thank you for giving of your time tonight and making sure that we have a good audience and an opportunity to challenge the information that we do have and to get additional expert guidance and feedback. This has been an extraordinarily helpful series of content, and I can't promise we'll be able to have time to do this during the season, but there are a number of past presentations that we have done that are currently on YouTube. If you're interested in getting more information during the season, let me know, and I will do my best to pair you up with someone in your area, wherever that is, who can continue to work with you so you can find your way to achieve your goals and successes. I guess fair is fair. My email address is going to go in the chat. I'm on Facebook. I'm easy to reach. If you want to work tournaments, etc., let me know, and I'll be happy to help you. But again, thank you all very much, and I appreciate everyone making time to help.
You are very welcome.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. It's great to talk with you all, and hope to see you all in the future.
Thanks for having us.
Adios.